Testament versus Crisis. In the 80s, Testament was a second-rate thrash band trying to follow in the footsteps of the Big Four, but their brand of thrash metal seemed a bit generic. Its rhythms weren't as impactful, its melodies didn't have as much life. But in the 90s, they actually got significantly better. The only song from the 80s that I thought was really good was Sins of Omission. In the 90s, experience started to pay off, and they sounded better. They also sounded a little bit heavier, and they tried harsher vocals, which wasn't necessarily a good thing. But they had songs like Troubled Dreams, So Many Lies, John Doe, Hatred's Rise, 3 Days in Darkness, Careful What You Wish For, and Eyes of Wrath. But still, the majority of their work in the 90s was kind of bland, even though those songs were really good. That's 8 songs out of their 5 90s albums. But this band just kept working and plugging away, and they got even better in the 2000s. Their sound was just punchier and more engaging, more powerful in the 2000s. Especially the album The Foundation of Damnation. That was actually a really good album. Crisis formed in the mid-90s, and they're sort of kind of like a death metal band, and I know I'll make a point on this channel of not covering death metal or screamo, but I make an exception for Karen Crisis as a vocalist, because although she does a decent amount of death metal vocalization, she does a lot of other things with her voice, enough to keep me interested. She has pretty decent clean vocals, and a lot of fairly good in-between vocals as well. Their first album, 8 Convulsions, was absolute crap, except for one song, There Goes My Soul. That song foreshadowed what their sound would later become, and it still holds up when compared to songs on their better albums. Then there was Deathshed Extermination. I don't know what this band did in the 2 years between 8 Convulsions and Deathshed Extermination, but holy shit. This is one of the best, most underrated albums in metal that practically no one talks about. It's just invigorating, brutal, and epic. On their second album, The Hollowing, they opted to broaden the sound that they established with Deathshed Extermination, and somewhat compromised its brutal nature. During this time, the band also contemplated changing their name, and did a side project where they recorded a song called Burning in My Own Hell, which you can't find on any of their albums, but it's a pretty cool song that can be found on YouTube if you just search for it. But ultimately they opted to continue with Crisis and release their third and final album, Like Sheep to the Slaughter. On this album they managed to include more nuance and style, while keeping most of the heavy badassery that made Deathshed Extermination so great. Crisis has a commanding, mammoth, raging sound with sinister, hair-raising melodies. Many of their songs are like colossal, blustering storms of fury. The first 2 songs on my top 30 list, Methodology and Working Out the Graves, are great examples of this. And if you're not familiar with Testament, or you've only heard their work from the 80s, and not their much better 2000s and late 90s work, then check out Dark Roots of the Earth, So Many Lies, Careful What You Wish For, and The Evil Has Landed. These are excellent, clamorous blends of driving power and skill. So now it's time to compare these two bands. So Seven Seals at number 30 is worth 1 point, Corpus Apocalypse is worth 2 points, and the next song after that is worth 3 points, and then 4, and then 5, all the way up until the first song is worth 30 points. And Crisis wins 262 to 203. But hold on, in all my other mainstream versus underground videos, I separated the music into heavy metal and hard rock. Now with this, it's not really appropriate to do that because these are mostly metal bands. Testament doesn't really have any hard rock besides maybe Return to Serenity, and a few others that aren't as good as Seven Seals and shouldn't be on this list anyway because they're just not as good. But some of Crisis's songs, I gave them a second listen, and Corpus Apocalypse, The Watcher, In the Shadow of the Sun, and Exit Catacombs are so monumentally epic that they fool you into thinking they're heavy, but they're actually not. And Mechanical Man is so fast and ravenous that it can also fool you into thinking that it's heavy. but upon careful inspection you can hear that these songs don't have enough blaring power chords and floorboard-shaking palm muting to really justify calling them metal. They have some of that, enough to justify calling them hard rock, but not really enough to call them metal. So if you take those songs off, the list goes like this. And now if you add it up, Testament wins 242 to 223. So Testament is a slightly better metal band, but I think Crisis is a better overall band, because if you include in their few hard rock songs that they have, then they just have more good songs. And also bear in mind that I picked the Crisis songs off of their 4 albums, where I had to go through 10 albums of Testament to find the songs on this list. So even though they weren't around for as long, Crisis was more consistent than Testament was. But still, if you judge Testament on its best work and restrict it to only metal, then they're the better band. So, hope you've all discovered something that you like, and have a great day.